How to write and not to write a character. That thumbnail was pretty baller though, not gonna lie.
Every redemption arc lives or dies on one thing, earning it. And Kylo Ren is dead, while Zuko's still kicking. But how do you actually earn a redemption arc? What does earning forgiveness even mean? Let's find out, starting with the arc that didn't. Kylo Ren
didn't.
was a shoehorn last-minute
Fitting though,
arc
fitting.
because the sequel cycled through 3 different directors before going back to the first one. There were practically zero signs of Kylo Ren earning a redemption. He denied every chance given for it and spat in every hand that reached out to him, only to turn around in the trilogy's climax and go, hehe, never mind, I'm a good guy now. Wait, let's rewind to the beginning first. Kylo Ren is supposed to be the big bad of the First Order, the main bad guys in the sequels. He's supposed to be the new Darth Vader of a new generation. On paper, he makes for a pretty compelling villain, Vader's descendant, desperate to live up to a legacy he barely understands. Which is, interestingly enough, exactly what the sequels themselves are trying to do with the original trilogy. And just like Kylo Ren, they both fail at doing so.
They mimic a fraction of our power.
Kylo Ren is the son of Han Solo and Princess Leia, two of the most beloved characters in cinematic history. In the first film, Han reaches out to his son on that bridge, tells him it's not too late, begs him to come home, and Kylo ignites a lightsaber through his father's chest and seems indifferent about just having committed patricide. In the second, Rey extends her hand over and over, practically pleading with Kylo to turn back to the light, and every single time he just slaps it away, only to stretch out his own hand and try to drag her into the dark. In the third movie, after Rey stabs him in a duel and then heals him, Kylo gets a memory of his father, the mighty Harrison Ford himself, basically saying, do the right thing, or something. And just like that, he's a good guy again. He throws away his lightsaber and shows
also stupid of him to throw his lightsaber.
And after Rey kills Palpatine and collapses from the effort, Kylo holds her, uses the Force to heal her, then pours his life force into her body and sacrifices himself to bring her back. And
wait, that's how he brings her back? I just thought it's like he healed her and then kicked the bucket because I don't know reasons. But it's like so he healed her, brought her back from the dead, and then put himself in what?
Hey, for you Star Wars lore experts out there, correct me if I'm wrong, but ain't no way the Force works like that, right?
Oh, definitely not. More so, it did work like that before, but now you can easily say that. Yeah, that's how they canonize this nonsense. It's official. The Force ghosts are overpowered, and you basically wonder why exactly do you continue living if Force ghosts are like the ultimatum.
Anyway,
they literally took like the whole ordeal with Lego Star Wars and the Force ghosts from that game and made it canon to where they can use the Force, as opposed to being, joke characters that are fun to use. They made that official, unironically.
Do you see the problem here? It's all too easy. Kylo didn't seem to wrestle with a single second thought about murdering his father before this moment. Not a wink of sleep was lost over the First Order campaign of slaughtering millions or kidnapping children to mold into child soldiers. And somehow, I'm supposed to believe that a hallucination of his dead dad, which he murdered and showed no remorse, mind you, is all it takes to convince him to turn to the good side?
Yeah, that's crazy.
A redemption arc not being easy is the first step to make it feel earned. There's a quote by Theodore Roosevelt that completely sums up my thoughts on this. Nothing worth having comes easy. Kylo Ren's redemption doesn't feel worth having because it's too easy. Palpatine has already seized control.
And I don't even think it's like straight up easy. It's just it comes out of nowhere and it just happens for no reason. It's not even something you can say it's easy. It just happens.
First Order from under him. Kylo's already been ousted as Supreme Leader. The only thing he has left to lose is his life. And conveniently enough, losing it means he never has to face consequences for anything he's done. So when he sacrifices himself to save Rey,
That is
what
true.
is he actually sacrificing? The answer is that he's sacrificing the consequences he'd have to face if he survived. He basically just ran for the emergency exit the second things got bad. If they wanted a redemption arc that actually landed for audiences, they could have at least tried to show him wrestling with the fact that he, murdered his own father in an outburst of unchecked rage. Or shown him sympathizing with the people they ripped from their villages and conscripted into a war they never asked for. Hopefully that doesn't happen to us soon. But he doesn't. He treats every single person in the First Order the way a Karen treats a minimum wage cashier during rush hour. A Karen needs to
now I can't unsee the wig on top of the helmet. That is that is prime gold. That is perfect, actually. Holy.
wrestle their morality to make a redemption.
You should have been blonde.
I'm a bit of a nerd, so let me put it on a graph. A proper, believable redemption arc should look like this. A jagged, messy line. Ups and downs, steps forwards, and relapses backwards. The character inches toward decency, then backslides into darkness, then claws their way back up again.
That's why he's using Zuko.
Between who they are and who they could be. Kylo Ren's arc looks like this. A steep, uninterrupted nosedive that only jerks upwards in the final minutes when there's nothing left to lose.
True.
And when a character does finally
It doesn't even have a downpour. It's straight up like, I'm good now, and just straight up juts upwards
to the light. It needs a hefty cost, something you stand to lose because you chose the right thing. The right choice can never be the easy choice, and Kylo choosing to save Rey was, by every conceivable measure, the easy choice. And here's another quote from someone far more influential than Theodore Roosevelt, someone far more influential than a former American president forever immortalized on Mount Rushmore. A quote from SpongeBob SquarePants.
If you can't do the time, don't do the crime. Okay, time's up.
That's exactly what Kylo Ren's redemption arc looks like to me. And what's funny is that the original trilogy already had a good redemption arc, with the character Kylo worships no less. Darth Vader's redemption through death actually works. The Sith were winning. The Empire was at full power. There was absolutely no reason for Vader to betray Palpatine and save Luke. They had already won. Why
to be fair,
to the losing side and throw away everything you sacrificed to get here? But he does it anyway. He chooses his son over the empire he built. It cost him everything, including his own life. This is what makes Vader's death land so hard. He doesn't get absolved for his sins or anything. He saves his son.
He becomes a Force ghost, but a lot of people give him reasons for becoming a Force. I don't know. It is what it is, though.
Disfigured and broken in the arms of a kid who barely knows him. The galaxy celebrates his death, and nobody mourns him except for Luke. Just a quiet funeral pyre and a son who'll carry the memory alone. And the most important thing the original trilogy understood that the sequels never figured out was that Vader's redemption doesn't ask you, the audience, to forgive him. Luke forgives him, and in the end, that's really all he wanted, to be the good man that his son saw in him. And the movie never pretends that saving your son undoes decades of genocide, while Kylo gets the opposite. He gets a kiss from Rey and then fades peacefully into the Force. The movie goes
crazy,
let me play the song.
Yeah, come to think of it, Vader didn't even fade. He just stayed there, and possibly after he got cremated, did he turn into the Force? That's interesting.
For you on the world's smallest violin and acts like we all should be reaching for the tissues, mourning a man who spent the entire trilogy committing war crimes without the slightest hint of regret. The difference between the two is that Vader had everything and chose to give it all up, while Kylo had nothing left and gave up because of it. On the other hand, we have Zuko. He's probably the first character that comes to a lot of people's minds whenever someone mentions a good redemption arc, and deservedly so. And I deserve you pressing that subscribe button.
Do it!
Speed, I need this. My channel
Do it for both of us.
Homeless. Zuko is the crown prince of the Fire Nation, scarred and banished by his own father, Fire Lord Ozai, before the series even begins. His mission, assigned by the man who seared his face and hurled him out the door, is to capture the Avatar, a feat no one has pulled off in 100 years. And Zuko has
Over 100
internalized
years.
one horrifying answer: honor equals love. Capture the Avatar in order to reclaim his honor so that he can earn back his father's affection is a transaction no child should ever have to make. You see, Kylo was chasing power. Zuko was chasing his father's approval. He's a traumatized teenager who has confused love with obedience.
Emo
and his
teenager.
entire character arc is the
Let's
slow,
not forget that.
agonizing process of him unlearning that. In Book 1, Zuko is introduced as the show's primary antagonist. Notice how I said antagonist and not villain, because Zuko is not evil, far from it actually. That is because even in early episodes, Zuko is shown to have a moral compass. There are some lines that he simply refuses to cross. From the very beginning, cracks of inner conflict and flickers of compassion are shown through his characterization, particularly in his relationship with Uncle Iroh. The first thing these writers understood that the Star Wars sequel writers never did is the difference between being an antagonist and being evil, because not every antagonist is evil, and not everyone who is
They're called characters. They can perform evil actions, and even then, are they truly evil?
evil is the antagonist. Zuko does do bad things, yes, like raiding Katara and Sokka's Water Tribe village, or just trying to capture Aang in general, but you can always sense the ceiling on how far he'll actually go. In Book 1, Episode 12, titled The Storm, Zuko is trapped between two choices: chase the Avatar and reclaim his honor, or abandon the pursuit and save his crew from a deadly storm. Zuko, the boy who believes himself honorless, makes the choice to prioritize his crew's safety without any hesitation. He chooses to save lives over complete.
Okay, no offense, but we can't compare a character who was written well and established properly as a character to a shoe. Like, no offense, but there's such a huge gap in characters between Zuko and Kylo Ren. It's not even a joke at this point. Straight up facts.
His mission, and he does this repeatedly. Every time he's forced to choose between a life and his mission, he chooses the life, like when he abandoned his chance to capture the Avatar to rescue his Uncle Iroh from Earth Kingdom soldiers. And this is all in Book 1, the very first season. The seeds of Zuko's moral compass are already buried deep in the audience's minds from the very start. But Book 2 is where the arc does its heavy lifting, because this is where Zuko takes one step forward and then two steps back, exactly the way real change works. Zuko and Iroh are exiled, branded fugitive
I'll wait for him to mention it, but right now he's skipping some important facts.
by their own nation. For the first time, Zuko witnesses what the Fire Nation's war actually means.
Okay, he
had
mentions
followed the propaganda whole before that the war was about spreading prosperity to the world, when in reality it was just imperialism wearing a cheap mask. When Iroh falls ill, they disguise themselves as refugees and flee to the Earth Kingdom for medical help. And in there, Zuko meets a girl named Song, who tends to Iroh and invites them for dinner. And during their time together, Song reveals a burn scar on her leg, an injury she got from the Fire Nation raid that also took the life of her father. She sympathizes with Zuko, assuming he's also a victim of the Fire Nation, which, in a twisted way, he is. This is the first time Zuko has been confronted by a human being on what the Fire Nation actually does. He tries not to think much about it, and on the way out, he steals her family's ostrich horse anyway, even though he knows it's wrong. Throughout the season, there are multiple instances of this, the war's consequences paraded in front of him, one gut punch at a time. A father who's lost every son but one, with the boy who has no brothers left to teach him how to fight. Near the season finale, Uncle Iroh and Zuko have built a quiet, peaceful life running a tea shop in Ba Sing Se. Zuko despises it. He feels hollowed out and without purpose. Then later, he discovers Appa, Aang's faithful companion imprisoned beneath the city. And his first instinct was to use Appa as bait to lure Aang. Months of growth evaporate in an instant, as he snaps back to his old self like an addict who can't get enough. But Iroh shows up before anything can happen. He begs Zuko to do the right thing and asks him one question.
I'm begging you, Prince Zuko. It's time for you to look inward and begin asking yourself the big questions. Who are you? And what do you want?
And Zuko helps set Appa free instead. For a brief, fragile moment, Zuko is genuinely happy in Ba Sing Se. Then, the season finale gave him the most difficult choice he was ever given in his life. Zuko is thrown into a crystal catacomb alongside Katara, and she's furious. Because whenever she thinks of the face of her enemy, Zuko's face is the first one that pops up, since he's been hunting them since day one. And she hates the Fire Nation, since they were the ones that ripped her mother away from her. But after she tells her that, Zuko responds,
I'm sorry. That's something we have in common.
She's taken aback at first, shocked, not knowing what to think. But then they talk and connect. Katara even offers to try to heal Zuko's scar using her most precious possession, spirit water from the North Pole. But before that can happen, Aang and Iroh break into the catacombs to rescue them. But Azula is there with the Dai Li to thwart the escape attempt, and she dangles the one thing Zuko has been yearning for his entire life: his place in the family, his honor, his father's love, his
Honor.
approval,
Honor.
all of it,
Honor.
only if he helps take down the Avatar. Uncle Iroh begs him to do the right thing again, but this time, it doesn't work. He chooses Azula. He fights alongside his psychotic sister, and in the end, Aang gets blasted out of the sky with a lightning strike that nearly kills him. Iroh helps Aang escape, and Katara barely saves Aang's life with the spirit water she'd offered to use on Zuko. The Earth Kingdom has fallen. By Book 3, Zuko has everything he has ever wanted. He's no longer an exile, and he's reinstated as the crown prince of the Fire Nation. For the first time in his life, his father looks at him with pride instead of disdain, and he's miserable.
Does he really
Uncle
look at him
Iroh,
with
the only
pride?
living person in his family who actually loved him unconditionally and did everything he could for him, is rotting in a prison cell and won't even look at him. His experiences in book 1 and 2 have already fundamentally changed who he is. And now, the life he fought so desperately to reclaim doesn't fit the person he became while fighting for it. He begins
I am surprised he hasn't mentioned the other stuff from book 1. It's kind of crazy.
to see that his life in the Fire Nation and what he is told does not match his experiences in the Earth Kingdom and the people he met there. He got everything he ever wanted, and it tasted like bitter ash. Zuko's
Bitter
confrontation with his
ash.
father during
Why
the
not just
solar eclipse was the
ash?
peak turning point. He stands before Ozai, tells his dad off, and then says,
I'm going to join the Avatar, and I'm going to help him defeat you.
Hell
This is
yeah.
a man who got everything he ever wanted, his father's approval, and he walked away from all of it while he still had everything to lose from doing so. He ditched the
Well-
winning side to join the losing one because it was the right thing to do. And when Zuko shows up at Team Avatar's doorstep, of course they don't trust him. Who would? It can't be that easy. You can't spend seasons chasing the protagonist, trying to kill them, then suddenly appear and go,
Hello, Zuko here.
expect everyone to forgive you and go, oh, we're best buds now. And to be fair, he does know it wouldn't be that easy. He spent an entire episode agonizing on how he's going to approach them. Then, after switching sides, he still has to actually work to regain their trust. And the show dedicates 3 different episodes for Zuko to bond with and regain the trust of the 3 members of Team Avatar that he wronged the most, showing them that he really has changed and is trying his absolute best to be a better person. With Aang journeying to the Sun Warrior Temple to uncover the true origins of firebending, stripping away everything the Fire Nation corrupted, and learning with Aang that fire isn't destruction, it's life. With Sokka insisting to join him for a suicidal rescue mission to free his father from the boiling rock, a mission Sokka was about to attempt alone before Zuko stepped in without hesitation. With Katara, the person who felt most gutted by his betrayal in Book 2, he helps her track down her mother's killer. He stands beside her in grief and lets her make her own choice. Him being there helps her choose mercy. But the most heart-touching emotional moment of his entire arc is when Zuko reunites with Uncle Iroh. He's terrified and is convinced his uncle despises him for the betrayal, bracing himself for rejection
Such a
from
sweet
the only
moment,
person
honestly.
whose forgiveness actually matters. And instead, you know what? Just watch it here.
Uncle, I know you must have mixed feelings about seeing me. But I want you to know, I am so sorry, Uncle. I am so sorry and ashamed of what I did. I don't know how I can ever make it up to you, but
You can hear the pain and regret in his voice and dialogue.
Great.
His redemption arc is complete. Zuko is the perfect counterexample because he did everything Kylo Ren didn't. Most importantly, because it was the most difficult thing he has ever done in his life. His
Here's the most important thing he forgot to mention. They characterized Zuko as a reasonable, somewhat good antagonist. Straight up in episode 1, when he goes into attack the village, when he eventually gets Aang, and Aang surrenders in for the safety of the village, he doesn't go out of his way to capture Aang and then burn the village. He straight up says, sure, yeah. Like, he has the army, the soldiers, and the ability to do this, but he doesn't. He just straight up agrees to Aang's terms and leaves. He got the Avatar and he leaves. Same thing for other episodes as well. The guy was shown that despite being essentially the rival to the others, not exactly a type of monster that they described the Fire Nation to be. Like, he's essentially the bad guy, but not like the bad guy. Insert the Zangief meme. Essentially, he has his moments where he's good. And after the events of, like, season one's finale, one of the most interesting things was with Zhao. Right, that was the guy? Yeah, I think. Like, when he saves Aang, Aang saves him from being captured by Zhao and his Yu Yang, and subsequently the two have an interesting talk. And after Aang leaves, Zuko doesn't go out of his way to pursue him. He just sits on Aang's words of could have they been friends, which is in fact interesting. You'd think he wouldn't dwell on it, but he does. And in the end of season 1, even though Aang still saves him, subsequently he fights Zhao. When Zhao gets captured by the spirit, he goes out of his way to try to save Zhao. Like, he doesn't go out of his way to let him perish. The guy who tried to quite literally execute him, Zuko goes out of his way to try to save. Yeah, Zhao is a proud, shab, but still, he tried to save him, like, regardless of it all. And season 2, just kind of after the whole ordeal with the exile, just allowed for Zuko to see the different perspective, thus finally changing him entirely. That's kind of important because he was still a good person, per se, but not exactly a full-on good guy. And that's important because even though they showed he is reasonable and somewhat nice, he isn't exactly a full-on super villain or evil main antagonist or villain, I guess. There are moments where he is in fact good. And even though they're slight or somewhat not that many, they are there. Also, comedy, to some extent, helps out making him look less serious and does impact him in some way, shape, or form. Because with Azula, you don't get much comedy, more so serious stuff and the occasional tragedy. And the same thing can be said about, like, straight up the Fire Lord. Like, guy has never been shown to be having even the slightest bit of, like, oh, I'm nice, I'm, like, good, I go out of my way to be a polite person. Like, he's straight up is never shown to have even the slightest moments of humanity or even, like, compassion. He's straight up the bad guy. You have to take him down. That's it. Again, it's important. And Kylo Ren, I guess with the beginning movie, they tried to show him somewhat a competent antagonist that is trying to stray away from being the good person. Then you had the events with episode 8 that just threw everything in the water with the whole berating and stuff. And you had episode 9 that just completely went bonkers and then had a sudden, I'm good now. It's like, it's like straight up the equivalent of my job here is done, but you didn't do anything. He just leaves. Straight up. Saves Rey, my job here is done, but he didn't do anything and just dies.
Kid's redemption has a cost. Choosing to be good stripped him of everything he'd spent his life fighting for, and he didn't do it because he thought that he'd get a greater reward in the end. This isn't like one of those influencer stunts where someone pretends to be homeless, waits for a stranger to offer them a sandwich or something, then whips out $10,000 for the camera. Those performances of generosity engineered for clout instead of an actual act of human kindness.
Yeah, like it's crazy those types of things exist. I remember like a lot of people are like, "Oh man, I paid for this person's food and everything." And it's just like, okay, good. So the big question is, why the hell are you recording yourself to tell me this? Seriously, why do they do this? It's like, let me record this. Let me show this to you. Let me. It feels so fake. And chances are, when you do some good stuff, it might not end up being good. Like, it might end up being having you being used for your good deed. Like, again, the example that I have with this chick, chances are she might have done a good thing, but the fact that she goes out of her way to publish like a VOD or something on the internet for her to say this is like completely bizarre. Like, do you need to tell everyone you did a good deed? It's good enough that you did the good deed. You don't need to spread it like you're some kind of messiah. At the exact same time, I have a story not related to me directly, but it is from someone who did a good deed. They decided to go out of their way to help a kid who was in fact starving and needed money. So they gave him money, and what happens in the end? They got used. The kid wasn't hungry or starving or anything. He literally used the money he got from the person to play an arcade game, which is like a massive form of like betrayal. So when you do a good thing, you ended up being used for your good thing. And like, it's a story that I don't have to show you evidence. Believe me or you don't believe me. That's it. And that speaks more as opposed to just having a video recording and saying, "Oh, I did a good thing," or "Behold, the good deed I recorded for everyone to see." It's like, it feels so televised, like straight up fakery for the sake of clout. It's stupid.
Yes, Zuko ends the series as Fire Lord, and yes, he gains something arguably greater than a crown. Real friends who would walk through fire alongside him, no pun intended. But he didn't know what would happen when he made his choice. He walked away from everything, expecting to receive nothing in return, because his conscience was clawing at his chest and he couldn't silence it anymore. And the most important part is that it was believable. Remember the chart? Zuko's arc is that jagged, messy line. One step forward, 2 steps back. And during the season 2 finale, Zuko crashed harder than my stock portfolio during the Trump administration.
Damn!
It would have been perfectly fine if Zuko switching sides at this point. The groundwork was already all there, but there was one glaring problem the writers refused to ignore. Zuko hadn't actually changed what he wanted. He was just trying to accept that he couldn't have it anymore. And there's a universe of difference between those two things. Head writer
It's almost
Aaron
like he's a
Ehas revealed that
character.
Zuko was initially planned to join Team Avatar in the season 2 finale, but as they approached the finish line of writing it, Ehas simply pulled the plug, saying he still wasn't ready. That single decision is what elevated Zuko's redemption from good to
Wikipedia.
perfect. One important piece of context is that the show was almost cancelled after season 2. Ehas have said before that the network initially did not want to pick the show up after season 2, stating the reasons being that the ratings were not strong enough. All the writers after season 2 were practically let go, and that everybody was sent home for like 3 to 4 months. Corporate execs do what they do best, threatening to euthanize art the moment it stops printing money fast enough. So the decision to have Zuko betray
And then go out of their way to overperform or like underdeliver to basically get the nostalgia and money from others. Corpos, man. They don't seek your joy, they just seek your money, your wallet.
Iroh and to delay the redemption and to let the character fail when the audience was begging for him to succeed was made knowing the show might never get a 3rd season. That finale could have been Zuko's last moment on screen, and Ehas chose to end it with betrayal anyway because he believed it was the right storytelling choice so fiercely that cancellation wasn't enough to make him change it. Okay, so we now know how to earn a redemption arc. Don't make it easy. And the way to make it not easy is to make it messy and make the audience genuinely believe that this person clawed their way out of hell to change. But we haven't answered the other question yet. What does earning forgiveness actually mean? So let's take a look at how forgiveness itself works. Is there some sort of like threshold, some moral scale maybe weighing what they did against how sorry they are? Not really. You see, forgiveness actually tracks with emotional injury instead of moral injury. Or as a genocidal maniac once put it, a single death is a tragedy. A million are a statistic, and I can prove it with a character who is universally beloved despite having slaughtered millions of lives. Dragon Ball Z's Vegeta. On paper, he's irredeemable. When he was first introduced, he was the Saiyan prince under Frieza's command. He slaughtered millions, possibly billions of people without a shred of remorse. But in modern times, according to an official worldwide Dragon Ball community poll, he's actually the second most popular character in the entire franchise,
Next to
behind
Goku.
Why
Yeah.
is that, you may ask? You see, him killing millions was conveyed as more technical information more than anything. The framing of the atrocity was set up to make Vegeta terrifying, instead of making us feel the weight of what he did. He just killed millions of random aliens, and that kept his crimes abstract enough to stay redeemable in the audience's eyes. Just take a look at when he arrived on Earth. Did he actually kill anyone? And by anyone, I mean the named characters we follow and care about. He actually didn't. It was Nappa, his brute force henchman, that did most of the killing.
I mean, if I remember correctly, something about Vegeta was when someone else was compared to him, was basically one character seeks redemption and earns it by the end, but with Vegeta he doesn't even think himself that he's earned redemption, in a sense. It's kinda like he becomes a part of the good guys and joins their group, but he in the end is aware he's a bad guy and that he's going to hell no matter how many good deeds he might do. It's a bit complicated, but yeah, sure, I can see what you're trying to say. It's
Tien, Chaozu, Piccolo were all taken out by Nappa. The only person Vegeta killed was Nappa himself, so when you watch Vegeta blast Nappa to smithereens, he actually gained goodwill from the audience. I would argue that this single fact mattered more than any of the actual mechanics behind redemption we've talked about so far. Mechanics that Vegeta does beautifully, by the way. More important than the multiple arcs he endured before being fully embraced as one of the good guys. More important than his 2 steps back in the Buu saga, where he betrayed our protagonist, only to redeem himself again by sacrificing his life for the people he once swore to destroy, fighting for something beyond his pride for the first time in his existence. We can see the same pattern with Zuko and Kylo Ren. Zuko, for all his crimes, never actually killed or seriously injured anyone in Team Avatar, while Kylo Ren murdered one of cinema's most beloved characters of all time. I know what you're going to say, but Darth Vader killed Obi-Wan. Hear me out. Obi-Wan was introduced and killed off in the same movie. Han Solo, on the other hand, had an entire trilogy and over 40 years of additional content that fans consumed and sat with. People who loved Star Wars basically grew up with him.
I mean, technically speaking, Obi-Wan was more so like the old mentor figure, and they kind of made Han like that too. But on the one hand, Obi-Wan was introduced first as a mentor figure, and then had the whole prequel trilogy cover some of his stories related to Anakin mostly. Everything else kind of wishy-washy. But yeah, there's a difference because Han, like, there's a ton of stuff with Han, like his adventures, his smuggling duties, his additional jobs and helps that he does for the Republic, for the rebels, like everything. A lot of stuff. Way more than Obi-Wan, who just was basically the mentor for Anakin, then Luke, and then kicked the bucket. I mean, granted, they tried something with the Mandalorians and whatnot, but overall, at the end of the day, Obi-Wan is just like the kid who does no wrong, essentially. Where Han Solo is the punk that we all like. I think that's the best way I can put it.
Seeing Han Solo die is like seeing your favorite family member die at that point. And this might be clear in hindsight, but Obi-Wan carried death flags from the moment he appeared on screen. The old, wise, mysterious mentor figure. Yeah,
he mentions
that's
it.
just a trope by this point, which it is. This is flawed human psychology at its finest. And it actually has a name, the identifiable victim effect. In 2003, researchers discovered that people donated significantly much more money to save a single starving girl named Rokia than to relieve an entire famine described through statistics. Your brain literally cannot comprehend the pain of millions of people, so it flattens them into some numbers on a page. But one person, one starving little girl with a name and a face and pain you can empathize with, now that we feel bad for. So what does this mean for storytelling? In both stories and real life, we feel more hurt when the wound is personal than when it's severe. The more we know a character, the more we feel bonded to them, the more their pain becomes our pain, and the more hatred we harbor towards whoever inflicted it. The scale of the crime doesn't determine our capacity for forgiveness. Our attachment to the victim actually does. Here's a real-life example to really show what I'm saying. Just take a look at the tragedies from the past. 9/11, school shootings, the war that's happening right now. Horrific
Use
events
the
that have
memes
destroyed
of all
real
things.
human lives. But those of us who are unaffected usually make jokes about them, especially decades after the event has happened. Like, I browse a lot of Instagram reels, right? And there's a shit ton of 9/11 jokes on there, but to those who are affected by these events, like those who lost someone or lived through them, those same events the internet makes jokes about will bring up a lot of pain or anger inside them. And look, I'm not saying that we shouldn't joke about these things or that I'm somehow morally superior for pointing this out. As a writer, I believe fiercely in freedom of speech and the freedom to express ideas, and I make plenty of these edgy jokes myself, but I wouldn't crack a 9/11 joke in front of someone whose family member was taken by the tragedy. That's just distasteful. Every single one of us probably harbors a grudge against someone whose crimes are
I mean, what was it? I remember a certain family featuring a certain person, or at least a character portraying that person in real life to be essentially, I don't know, it was kind of like a scene that was trying to replicate a tragic moment. And subsequently, the family was upset that they were going to do it, requesting that they take it down. But the series producer or something like that refused and continued on anyway, which is like, on the one hand, it is kind of sad that like the tragedy is linked directly, or more so like the scene itself is linked directly to a tragedy that happened not so long ago. But on the other hand, like, is it really their fault for wanting to do or cover said scene similar to the tragedy? It's kind of complicated, but I think TLDR, if you make fun of stuff, I don't think it's bad, but making fun of the people that survived or subsequently endured this pain is messed up. In a sense, if you want to make dark humor, make it. No one's gonna, like, getting angry at some dark humor or dark jokes is kind of childish. But on the other hand, if you're going out of your way to, like, repeat them in excess or use them on actual people that, like, are disturbed or straight up in pain from it, is, like, genuinely what is wrong with you type of ordeal. Okay, let's continue.
objectively a fraction of what history's worst monsters have committed, but the wound they left feels worse because it's ours. It's not something bad per se. I think it just means that we're not as moral as we think we are, because our forgiveness has fuck all to do with justice.
Sure. When
Instead,
were we?
It's about the amount of pain someone causes us personally. This applies to me too. If I had a gun with 2 bullets and I was in a room with that German painter, Stalin, and the university professor who failed me and threatened to expel me because I asked too many questions,
I would shoot the
I'm
professor
shooting my
twice.
professor twice. And this tracks perfectly with how audiences respond to fictional stories as well. In Red Dead Redemption, we are crying our eyes out for Arthur Morgan, but we forget the people that he wronged. If I asked you to tell me the name of the person with TB that Arthur beat half to death over a death
Don't
to
know the
gang,
game,
most
so,
of you would go, oh, because I did too. I had to Google it for this video. Thomas Downs. Most of us don't remember him because we spent the entire game alongside alongside Arthur, desperately trying to find every path and every choice trying to find a way to keep him alive, even though there wasn't, without sparing a single thought for this background NPC who Arthur basically killed. Also in Breaking Bad, a lot of us loved Walter White and were rooting for him to win. Meanwhile, Skyler, his wife, the person with a moral compass and desperately trying to do the right thing, was so viciously hated that the actress received death threats from her amazing performance, even though objectively she was morally correct. Step into her shoes for a second. Her husband, under the pretense of funding his treatment, has already earned more than enough to do so and has killed multiple people along the way. Any moral, upstanding person will be terrified. And look, I fell into this exact same trap too. I despised Skylar's character and was cheering for Walt every step of the way. It took years and stumbling across someone's video essay about the hatred Skylar received and the death threats her actress endured for me to gain a completely different perspective on it. So with all that, now we know a redemption arc lives and dies on not one, but two things. First is making them earn it, don't hand it to them, and make their road to redemption jagged and grueling, the way real change actually works. If it's easy, it's worthless. Second, it matters who they hurt. If the character's crimes were inflicted on people we've spent hours or even years loving, our forgiveness has a limit. And if you're going to push past that limit, you'd better damn well at least drown that character in regret from the very start. Even redemption arc that does
even more so, at least make it make sense. Like, Kylo's redemption doesn't even like have any justification for being there. It just pops out of the blue, like straight up manifested into reality for no reason other than just me good now.
Earning part well. Think Negan from The Walking Dead or Omni-Man from Invincible. Still leave fans divided. But in the end, that's your choice as a writer. What really matters is that the choice is intentional and that it makes sense. I would talk about these two characters as well, but this script has already ballooned out of proportion. I would usually try to have a cool cheesy one-liner to close out my videos, but I can't really think of one for this one here that doesn't really feel forced. So unscripted, I'll talk a little bit about the future of this channel. I'm hoping to be able to upload once every 2 weeks, but with work it's a bit difficult as I work in East Asia and usually have like 9 to 10 hour shifts every weekday and sometimes weekends, which is typical here, but like it just sucks, man. I'm aiming to upload once every 2 weeks, but if a video slips to 3 weeks like the last one, that's why. Like, I'd rather take the extra time to give you guys something worth watching than rush out something that I'm not that proud of. Oh yeah, I also set up a Discord server, links in the description and pinned in the comments. I think it will be fun to talk to you guys and stuff, especially about like writing, films, anime, games, anything really, and maybe share some funny memes as well. I'll also probably set up some community polls, both on my community tab and Discord, to see which of my ideas you guys would like to be made into a video next. So yeah, if you liked the video and got something from it, go and check out some of my other stuff. It really helps me out a lot.
Turning out content does become both boring and pointless. Being a bit more consistent and thorough with something you like, it would be better. Yeah, good points, my guy. Good points. Thank you.